Welcome to Smart Money, brought to you by Daily Investor, South Africa's fastest growing investment publication. Today, Zak Calisto, founder and CEO of Karooooo and Cartrack, joins me. He's one of South Africa's most successful entrepreneurs, having founded Cartrack in 2004 as a stolen vehicle recovery service, and a decade later, listed it on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It proved popular amongst investors. The share price increased from R8.50 a share in December 2014 to over R40 per share 6 years later. But then, Zak delisted Cartrack from the JSE and listed Karooooo, which wholly owns Cartrack, on the Nasdaq on the 1st of April 2021, with a secondary listing on the JSE. Today, Karooooo is a multinational powerhouse headquartered in Singapore with 1.7 million subscribers across 23 countries. Zak, thanks so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure catching up with you. And right at the top, I want to start off with what attracted you to entrepreneurship and motivated you to leave the corporate world to start your own business.
Hi, Alicia. It's always very difficult to answer that. So my only job that I ever had was in the corporate world at Standard Bank. And I think fundamentally it's in my DNA to be an entrepreneur and to look for opportunities and to drive value out of those opportunities. So I think, one doesn't choose to become an entrepreneur. I think you're sort of born an entrepreneur, if that makes any sense.
Makes complete sense. It's in your DNA. There's always this nurture versus nature debate, right? 2004. That's when you started Cartrack. And initially, it was in South Africa and in a few neighboring countries that you boasted this incredible growth. Did you know from the onset, Zak, that there would be such a great demand for the services Cartrack was putting on the table?
Well, I certainly knew there was a great demand for the services. What I couldn't foresee is the big expansion of technology. And what's obvious to me today is that one doesn't really know what you're going to be doing in 10 years because technologies they continuously get bigger. So the reality is we now, from 2004, it's 13 years later, we've got 105,000 commercial customers. What we're doing today with our technology has nothing to do with what we initially started out with. So, I couldn't be the visionary to see what one would be able to do with technology over time.
You talk about the role technology plays, the role, the evolution in technology plays, but also demand plays a key factor here, right? It's seen you expand operations into Europe and Asia. Those just two of your key markets right now. But while you stand as this multinational now, Zak, how difficult was it building a global company with operations in over 20 countries, turning vision into reality?
Vision is the easiest part. And the reality, it's never easy. It's, people always say it was done overnight, but they forget to count the nights. So it's total commitment, dedication, innovation. That's what's going to get you there. I don't believe there's an easy path.
Yeah. And like I said at the top, you then you made this decision to delist Cartrack from the JSE and listed Karooooo on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange in 2021. Before we get into that decision and why it was taken, why Karooooo? Why so many O's?
So I actually had a company that actually owned my shares in South Africa, and the name of that company was called Karooooo with 2 O's. And then when I wanted the domain of Karooooo, I couldn't get it because someone in America has got it, and they asked me for a few $1 million for the domain. And then I just, went and registered Karooooo with 3 O's up to 10 O's.com. And so we now own all those domains. And at the end of the day, what we also learned over time, a name is just a name. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I see Zoom now has got 6 O's.
Exactly. So saved a bit of buck there and affirmed an identity, I guess. Karooooo's been listed on the Nasdaq for roughly 2 years. Talk us through the rationale behind the listing in the US, and with the benefit of hindsight, Zak, was it the right move to grow the company?
And definitely. So the rationale there is, we're looking for a very long-term financial platform that will be able to service an international company. And we thought it was important to go to the Nasdaq, but we also remained in with listing into the JSE, allowing existing shareholders and new South African shareholders that wouldn't have access to the Nasdaq to continue participating in our vision and in our execution. Was it worth it? If you look at the share price, it's been very, very flat over the 2 years, but I'm quite used to not instant gratification. I think the gratification comes with time, but I certainly believe that we now have a great financial platform to grow from.
So let's home in on that growth, because you've got 3 main business units: Cartrack, Karooooo, and Karooooo Logistics as well. 80% of your business may come from Africa, but you've got operations, like I said, in Europe and Asia as well. Which areas are you most excited about, Zak, providing the thrust to your growth ambitions? What's that next big arena of growth as you see it?
Well, there's huge growth in Europe coming for us. I certainly am feeling very, very confident. I've spent quite a bit of time in Europe in the last 2 to 3 months, working with our country managers and our senior executives there, and with also the OEMs. I think making really good progress, and I think we're going to do really well in Europe. I think in Asia, we're starting to pick up great momentum, and I certainly believe that's probably our long-term biggest opportunity. And of course, South Africa remains, very dear to us. I mean, we are South African, a lot of us in management, and despite last year, we only grew subscribers by 11%. We did see our subscription revenue grow by about 15% in South Africa. And judging by the first 2 months of this fiscal year, I think we're going to have a very good year in South Africa, despite all the headwinds. So South Africa still remains, in my opinion, a huge and large opportunity, and specifically with all the new technology that we're currently bringing out, which we'll start rolling out in July, August this year. And I think that is going to give us a real springboard to continue growing the South African market.
Yeah. Having said all of that, I mean, if you're looking at the scale of market offshore, it's phenomenal, right? Versus a more mature market like South Africa, for example. You've said this before in previous conversations that we've had. Is that how you decide on your where next? I mean, is any new market you venture into dependent on low penetration rates, or is it not as simplistic as that?
Well, it's not quite as simplistic, because there's low penetration rates I would say, in every geography in the world. I think at this point in time, we've got enough on our hands, and we could not take on a new geography. We've got enough to do. We need to focus on the geographies we're currently in. But clearly, there's lots and lots of really good geographies that we don't operate in.
Okay. Looking at some of the commentary that's been doing the rounds early this year, Zak, it's been that 2023 could be your year if business in Southeast Asia gets going, if you're able to successfully build scale on that end. You've entrenched yourself on that end. You're currently living in Singapore as well. And yes, you've taken a bit of home with you in the name of your company, but what do you miss most about South Africa?
Well, first of all, I've got a lot of friends in South Africa. And then I think it's, in terms of, we've got beautiful mountains, beautiful sea, beautiful landscapes. I think it's a beautiful country. So I think it's the people and the geography. It's just the beautiful landscapes, sea, mountains. You'll have to travel a long way to get any place to beat South Africa.
Absolutely. No lie in that. Zak, thanks so much for having joined us today, for taking the time to chat to us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.